Thinking about learning Tongan, or you'd like your children to be taught the Tongan language? Look no further than the Queensland Tongan Language School. The Queensland Tongan Language School offers a diverse Tongan language course covering reading, writing, listening, and most importantly, speaking. Our team of dedicated teachers delivers 6 lessons during school term, including face-to-face classes in Logan on Brisbane's south side for our Joeys or preschoolers, koalas, our primary school students, and our wombats or high school students. But that's not all. To ensure flexibility, we deliver online as well, with our Brumbies or adult beginners class and our Emus or second year adult class and our Crocodiles or master class for those who want to learn advanced Tongan. Enrollments are welcome for our online classes from across Australia and around the world. All students are welcome to attend our Kalapu TALANOA or weekly informal conversational club to practice speaking Tongan with our community elders. Don't forget our pen pal program with Friends of Tonga, just another great way to learn. Enroll today at brisbanetongancommunity.com/QTLS or drop us an email to brisbanetongancommunity@gmail.com. The Queensland Tongan Language School. Koe hakao e ahoni, koe whanua o apongpongi. Today's reef is tomorrow's land. Enroll today and start your journey learning the Tongan language.
Whakatalofa atu ki a koutou katoa. Former Tuvaluan Prime Minister Enele Sopoaga once said, "If we save Tuvalu, we save the world."
Pasifika TV and radio are on the lookout for innovative and creative minds to help save and shape the future of our Pacific through programming, technical experience, and exciting community developments through our multimedia platforms.
With a dynamic team of over 30 volunteers across Australia and the Pacific, we contribute in our spare time to a vision that includes bringing a Pacific perspective, shining a light on our culture, our spirituality, our language, our people, and our stories.
If you have a skill you'd like to share, a passion to build, want to add some work experience to your resume from home or in Brisbane, then we'd love to hear from you.
Fluency in a Pacific language is an advantage, but not a necessity.
Share your idea and let us know who you are by Facebook Messenger or email pacificaonair@gmail.com.
If we save the Pacific, we can influence the entire world.
If we save the Pacific, we can influence the entire world. But it starts with us.
Malo lau Māori ho eiki mo lelei ai tonga kotoa pe fia ke tare leki mo tolu ke tau polokalama TALANOA pe moho mo le tio mo televisione Pasifika pe ko tau polokalama koe o e ahoni o ko atu hanga tonu pe ia me Brisbane he wahi whanua Queensland e koni ne niti koe o Australia. I tau polokalama koia o e Houani o ko fia au pito ki uheni ai pe mo tau tangata o kai ke solo ki ai hataho tau kainga tonga ko tau tangata Olympiki I loa koia ko Pita Taufatofua Jr. Pe foki ne whai ako ko Master Paula Sitapa I he te waki koia ke na wholau ki Tokyo Siapani ki Olympiki hono tolonga fulu maua o ko amanaka mata ia I he mahinani ki Siapani I he wika kahau tena wholau foki ai ki Siapani. Kai ke he Hoi ka mo kai, ka tau polokalama o e ahoni, ka tau whepō talanoa aki mo ki naua, e whakahoko atu ia he le whakatonga pe ma le whapritania, pe o ko tale le ki mo tolo kotoa pe ki he tau polokalama. I'd like to warmly welcome you all, a big warm malo lelei coming to all of our Tongans who are tuning in across the globe and across Australia. Welcome to Pasifika TV and Radio and our Talanoa program. I'm Solieni and very, very pleased to be joined and to welcome to our program coming to you live from Brisbane, Queensland in Australia with our Tongan Olympian Pita Taufatofua Jr. and his coach, Master Paula Sitapa. I'd like to welcome both of you to the program. Maloho mo silama mai ke polokalama ahoni.
Hello, Zuli.
Goia. We might start with you, Pita. The 32nd Olympiad is due to start on the 23rd of July in Tokyo in Japan. Could you tell us a little bit about what events that you're going to be competing in this year?
So I'm currently qualified for Taekwondo. So I qualified in February of last year, and it's been about a year and a few months. But I was also training for sprint kayak to try and qualify, but I wasn't able to go across to the qualification tournament in Russia due to the lockdowns. So I missed that qualification tournament, but because I'm heading over there, I'm going to try and do the Tongan way and find a boat and paddle it anyway.
Because I was going to ask you that question about that, because I have seen on your social media you have been doing a lot of kayaking training and so on. So you are still going to aim towards, when you get there, see if there's a pathway to be in kayaking and taekwondo, or is it just part of your taekwondo training, the kayaking?
You know, when you come from Tonga, you always find a way. You know, you have to find a way. You have to search for the impossible in some way. And you know, we're going to be over there anyway for taekwondo. So I guess the goal is to go over there. The original goal was to be the first person in history to compete in 3 different Olympic sports, and we just couldn't get to the qualifier. So we're not giving up yet. You know, Tongans don't give up so easy. So we're going to give it a shot.
That's awesome. It's excellent. And Paula, ko I loi pe o ku kei whetakai e COVID tāhiwa I māmai. Ko I whihu I pe o kia hamana wā sii I a moua pe ko tau timi tonga I he teo ko ia homo whalaua a siapani I whunga ko ia COVID tāhiwa.
Malo pe te suri. Ko ilo tatau pe I he taha sport ko toa peu teo kai ki ngata pe I tonga. Ka I he u whanua ke he. O ku me lahe ange ke tuku taha toka ngā ki he parapare mauni e COVID tāhiwa. Pea mo e tairi iri ko hānai mea e hoko. He taimi rā wholau ki ai. He kono mo ni wai ke whakaamu ke mau kita he vailasi e COVID tāhiwa. O tonga ni ai. He taimi ta tau pe tuku taha pe toka ngā ke whokasi pe he teu he taimi ta tau. Pea ku te lahe ange ngahi mea ku teu hanga ko mea wholau mo mea. O te fulahe ange ia o tōtu ange ia I he whokasi o tono nge whai ki whamasino.
I know that you just mentioned, Pita, before about not being able to make some of those comps overseas, like
yes.
you mentioned in Russia and so on. So I guess one of the questions would be is how has that impacted your preparations? I guess not just it will affect a lot of athletes around the world, but how does this impact your preparations for taekwondo, not being able to get around or kayaking to some of these world comps?
So it certainly impacts my preparation because I haven't been able to go to comps, and you know when I go into the Olympics, I believe that I'm going to be fighting against the world champion in my first fight. That's how the seeding structure works, and to go from competing in local competition in Australia to all of a sudden you're in the Olympics against the world champion, the best kicker in the world who's trying to take your head off. And to not be able to go to comps and prepare for that is very difficult. But in saying that, I believe everyone's going through similar sort of things. We're stuck in Australia, so we only get to compete with people here. Maybe if you're in Europe, there's a few more options of fighting with or preparing for other fighters from around Europe. But yeah, it's difficult for everyone.
I think in terms of, I guess, your overall preparation and journey to where you guys are both at today. I might start with Paula, then come back to you on this question, Pita. Paula, ko tui pe, na iei hangahi āwahiwahe, na iei mo ngahi whangataa na ke whi ao muia I he whanonga mai ko eni he teo ki Olympica ko eni. Koe ha ngahi whangataa ko ia o te lava whaihaki lawe ki ai, malo kei ke mea I pe hau eiki mo e kainga tonga kuna o mea mai ki Polo Kalamani, ka koe ngahi whangataa ko ke whetaulaki ai muia I he teo ko eni he whanonga ki Olympiki hono tolongo fulumaua I Siapani.
Ko ilo e suri o ku lahe apute ngahi whaingataa. Mahalo ki nau tolu ko ngoku I he malai ko ngoku ta whaake whawhai ako. Ka tauta te whito ki he spoti ko ne Olympiki. O ki kai ka ngata pe I he ngahi whaingataa e sio ki he whaunga. Kona whaarere o teu. Ngā ki au ki he tuunga re volo o ku totonu ke whatua pureanga angi. E kai ngata I o ku ngofu o ku mau whaamiri. O ilo ko mea lahi taha ia o ku impact he whaamiri e taimi ko te mawahe ai ka whanua ke. Ka tauta te whito he taimi ko o ku tauwhiku ki ai pa mo e COVID tāhiwa. No wha te whaamiri he whanua ke I New Zealand. Ka o wholau mai au ko ngā koe whaamu ki he teu ki he tūtau ki he Olympiki. E taimi ta tau pe hango e lauka pe tane nai e suri. Nai kuare whai I he taekwondo. Pea kai ko Pita pe kana e malawa ke mafufua ko re fai fufua fefine ko ngoi matonga ke vainga I he Olympiki. I he tunga ko ia na fai e whenga lahi na lava ke whafulau mai a Maria Paseka pe me tonga ki Australia ko nga ke mau teu whakataha. Kana e whainga ta lahi api tonga ko ta whake visa mo ngahi ala mea pehe. Pea kai ke lava ke folau mai a Maria ki Australian. I hene pehe, o teu pea Maria ia I Tonga. Ko mea koe hoko te mau folau ki si apani ki he Olimpiki. Pea te whai ako I a Maria. I he taimu, waha taimu foi ta nai kai ki teu I. Koe kau e whaingata au wheku ki lahi pea moau ki whai ako. Ko hono whainga, he taimu tatau, ke teu I a Maria pea mo Pita. Ko ngā ke nama teu ki he Olimpiki. I he tawhake taha, koe ngahi mea whapaanga. Oku tau lawe I pe ko Tonga koe whanua masiva. Ko hae whanga ki mea te mau lava ala whai ki ngā ke lava pe teu o whai whamātu atu. Pāu ki he tuunga o totonu ke iai a teu, I he mea pe ku mau. O kai ke fu wesia lahi ko ngā koe ta whapaanga. Ko ngahi ki mea pe o ku wesia he teu, pa mo whainga tā o whekuki po teu.
Kuia, malonga he poinga leo ki o mai. Pita, for yourself personally, what has been some of the challenges or difficulties that you've come up against in your personal preparation towards the 32nd Olympiad in Tokyo, Japan?
Pretty much everything. I mean, it's kind of the it's kind of part of the process to going to the Olympics is the acknowledgement that there's going to be a lot of stuff which is going not quite the right way that you want it. So there's been injury. We struggle with the financial issue. Tonga's a country which is doing its best to help support us, but there've been some challenges in some funding, and it's so that's happened kind of along the way, and injury, and then we're all stuck with because of COVID. But I don't even look so much at the challenges anymore, because it feels like that's just the process, right? That's just a process for us to actually get to the Olympics, is to go through one after the other challenge. So we get excited when we see a new challenge. We prefer not to, but we've changed our focus to be like, that's in front of us. We're Tongan. We've got to go right through it. That didn't go to plan. We're Tongan. Keep going forward when everything is trying to push us backwards.
Cool, yeah. Now I know that this Olympics is very unique, apart from COVID, but I guess linked to COVID is the fact that there'll be no spectators. Those starting from the opening ceremony, supposedly there's going to be no spectators there either, other than the television cameras and all of us screaming from home from around the world. But I guess that I would suspect that as athletes you would draw some level of motivation from crowds that are cheering, seeing Tongan flags out in the stadium. How do you feel this is going to? I mean, how do you guys feel about the fact that you're going to go there and there's going to be empty stadiums?
I mean, it's every athlete wants their parents, wants their brothers, their sisters, their cousins, their friends, as many people as can travel to the Olympics to be there for them. Whether they do really well or whether they don't do so well, they still want that support. They still want to know that there's people cheering. So putting that aside, there's not much we can do about this now. We're going to go into a match. I'm going to go in. I want to fight a world champion, and it's going to be quiet. The only thing you're going to hear, and I was having a laugh with Master Paula about this, the only thing you're going to hear is Coach Paul yelling at me.
You're going to hear me better.
You're going to yell, keep your hands up. So if you see a bucket thrown across, then that's coming from Coach Paul. So it's going to be a little bit different, but it's when something's out of our control, we can't worry about it. It's just we know that the spirit of the Tongan people are going to be watching. We know everyone's going to be watching. We know there will be 6 to 7 billion people tuned into their TVs at some stage for the Olympics, for all the athletes from the different countries. So everyone will be there in some way.
Absolutely. E Paula ko lawe I pe o kai ke kakato ai ngai whanua o mani o kunau kaua tiki Olimpiki koe ni me heanga maheni. O ku ke pe hei ho o wakai a au koe whai ako, o ku iai ha advantage ki e tau timi tonga pe mo Pita Foki I he Olimpiki koe ni I he tokosi I atu ai ngahi whanua o ku kau mai ki Olimpiki I Tokyo.
Ko tui lahi au suri I he tawhako ni. Hango mea gana whamatala I Pita. Ko ilo mai ko whanga maari e ni. Ke ua I ia spectators ki he wainga. Ko ngā kia maua o ku maasianga maua I he close training. O ku kai ke whiaha ka kai tō lai. Pahanga ne lau. Te māko pe me he experience kan koe I Rio. ne fu to la he puto ka ka ina si o he mea pea koe whamatala wana whai me tua me malai ke fu ongo re rei ke ki he tō koe hanga koe whakahua na whai pita koe whainga maari e re rei ka te mau ngā ke mawhetala no ake he taimu koe wainga ka ki he tawhaki koe ki he vendors oku i he taekwondo oku kai ke fuusio he tawhaki koe ngā koe ranking koe i he tūnga taekwondo ko pau ke whihanga ngai a tōnga ia pa moe malunga taha koe i he taekwondo i mamani. He kei to ia whaunga ke kālo me ai.
Ko whiu whiu pia wanga whai mea koe ni.
Kei unga ko ranking point ko pau ke oku nau award nau tōluia e top ranking.
Ko ia.
Ko pau ke nau whihanga ngai nau tōluia pa moe maulalo taha koe i he ranking. Ai ku mao si ilo whapapau. Ta tau pei a pita pa mo Maria. Ko pau ke na whihanga ngai nau aia pa moe whikauraki koe mamani. Pea koe
ko hau whikauraki he taimini.
I he weight koe vainga pita koe heavyweight. Pe koe kilo e walunua ki o lunga. Koe whikauraki koe ai ko Lucia. Si Russia. Pea koe whikaua ko Korea. Aia oku fuu whewheka au pito. Pea kau au pito ai hoa vainga koe pita. Pea fu tau kei au pito. Mahalo whakatau ki he osi koe qualify o taekwondo. I he hoa vainga pita mahau siah ne whai vainga nau o si o whiatu i he ni manoa. Talo me he qualify. Koe toku whai vainga pe taha ni mawhai a ena lau wike ko osi. Oku sai pe ki he teu. Ka koe tū koe ki he tūnga whakatau kei moe mea. Oku kei mama o pita tonga me ai. Ka koe ilo koe whainga maari e lahi taha pete te mga aue aki. Koe hae focus ki taimi nou koe ni. Ko pau ke whai beho malere i taha. Koe ngā koe kai ke mafu tau mua ki ke whai ha mea lahi i he Olympiki. Ka koe tau mua tau putaha ke ting maua. Ke malawa ki nau tolu koe o mui mai he kahauhanga koe nau tolu e tau tupu he kahau. Ke nau toe whai nau toha mea au toe saiange. O fou i he waha i hala koe tofa e Pita Taufatofua ka maa Maria. Mako mea ku loto ke tuke toka.
Ko ia, malo au pito. Pita, I know that there were calls at some point along the line there for Japan to cancel these Olympic Games. In fact, they were postponed from last year to this year. As an athlete, and you've been exposed to several Olympic Games now, how important is the Olympics to mankind?
I can't think of any other celebration of humanity where a representative from every country in the world, the best of every country, comes together to compete to compete in sport, and then to not just to compete but to bring humanity together in some way. I don't know of a single other event that does that like the Olympic Games. So it's much more than sport. It's about showcasing the ability of the human spirit to overcome challenge. And sport is the vehicle to get there, but it's about showcasing the human spirit and how strong it can be. We're representatives of our country, but we're also representatives of the struggles we go through are the same struggles that everyone else is going through in some way. And if we showcase that we just keep going through the struggles, then maybe someone watching will push a little, will push through theirs. And to me, that's the ultimate purpose of the Olympic Games.
That's awesome. Now, I know that at Rio, you broke Twitter and so forth, carrying the flag for the island kingdom. You also competed in the Winter Olympics as well in Pyeongchang, I think is how you say it, in the Winter Olympic Games. Apologies to the Koreans tuning in. Are you carrying our flag for Tonga this year, or have they got someone else in mind for 2021?
I'm not involved in the selection process, so I just stay back and leave that up to the organising committee. Once they choose who the flag bearers are, because there's going to be, I believe, there will be a female and a male.
Female and a male. Yeah.
Once they choose that, and then we become aware of it. I'll be happy. I'm excited to see a female carrying the flag as well. It's time for women's sports to be lifted up in Tonga, around the world, but especially in Tonga, right? It'd be really nice to see women's sports lifted up. So, you know, to see a female flag bearer, that would bring me joy, you know, in a different way.
And I know that every athlete has a bit of a time limit in terms of how many, we can't go to Olympic Games for the rest of our life. What are you wanting to achieve for yourself in terms of, I guess, the Olympics, in terms of as an athlete, before you kind of get to that point where you're going to sort of call it a day from I guess, you know, global representation in the Olympics?
I think I'll be in the grave when I call it a day. I've always been about trying to challenge myself to the next level, So in Taekwondo, if I feel the version of me today can beat any version of me before, right? And when I no longer feel that, then that's when I'll probably call that a day. But I'm super excited about the kayaking event as well now. With this Olympic Games, the goal was to be first person in history, 3 sports. Like, no one's done this, right? And if somehow we find a way to, you know, to sprint kayak, then, you know, that's like 100 gold medal. Well, to me, that's what it feels like. To me, to be the only person coming from Tonga, to be the only person to, you know, to do that. When will I call it a day? Olympic-wise, I have this feeling for if Brisbane wins it, to bring it back to our side of the world, and then call it a day. But throughout that whole process, we're going to be transitioning on the young people, the youth, to, you know, challenging them to come and take our spot. You know, I'm happy for the day when someone beats me in taekwondo or kayak or whatever that is, because it's now time for the next generation. When that happens, but until that day, I'm going to keep putting the pressure on them to help them reach whatever that next level is. But, you know, when that day happens, I'll be like, we did something. We pushed that level to the, you know, we helped them reach that, and that'll bring us joy.
Well, yeah, it's a good segue to my next question for Paula. Paula, hange koe lawe koe a Pita. Oku moni pene lau, oku whainga whoki a Brisbane ke mau e whanga maari ke host ai Olympiki he ta uawhe ma tolu ua. Ko Brisbane whoki ku tuuia i he Pasifiki, Fitu Pasifiki, hange ko Nusila, Australia, moi hafu o tau tuupe he area koe ni. O kuanga whewhe hano malawa e Australia pe ko Brisbane i he wawhe tolua. O ka pau e ikuna whenga maari ke host ai Olympiki to take our Pacific on the journey. Pe ke tauhanga o whakakau mai, mo whanonga whakataha mo tukui whanua kaunga ape o Pasifiki i he Olympiki. O ka pau e lava ke whai ki Brisbane he ta wawhe ma tolua.
Ia ko tui koe kawe he mea mahu i ngā lahi. Pe tata te whito ki a tautolu koe me he Pasifiki. Oku mahuinga pito ke tau siolo o loa, ngai whainga maari e koe ia. O koe whakamlahi hang koe mea kona whakalawe ki a Pita. Ke lava ke wina e Brisbane hono hausi e Olympiki. Ka koe wanoa tolua suri. Oku kai ke ilo pe te au ki ai pe i kai. Koe pure pe o tua, pau pe te au ki ai. Ko hono mo o ni. Oku ofianga ia ki he tau, ki ofianga ki Tonga, ki Hamoa, mo motu koe Pasifiki. Pau ilo ka pai e whakalere ai Olympiki i Brisbane ni. E malawa ngai ke toe mateuteua ngai e tau kau Olympiki. Pa te tokolahi ngai e u spoti ke whawhawhungai. Ko ngā hange pe mei whai pe sipoti ia hange ko South Pacific e imo mea. O whai tonu ia i ho tau o te whanua kau ngā api ngā Pasifiki. Pako ilo ko mea re ia ki he hankoe ko lawa Pita. Ki nau tolu koe haka tupu e whanua. Ta tau pei morini pa pehe ki Tonga. Ke nau teu ko hape sipoti o ku nau whakaamu ke nau whawhunga a Tonga. E malawa pe ia. Ha whahinga spoti pe. Pe koe taekwondo, pe koe akapulu, pe koe kaiake. Ka koe ihe vai halangu koe ne mateu mai talo ma wahe mai me Rio. Hankoe lawa Pita. Ne mawhakasio ko whē a ta whaaki mo matapā. O ku malawa i ki whakariari ki he Tonga, pa mo e tō tupu a Tonga. Te nau malawa pe o wainga i a sipoti, o i kai ke a ko i Tonga. E malawa noa pe. Pea koe whakakaukau koe ki he kahau. Ke lawa he tō tupu ko toa, o kai ke tāre niti a ka pulu pe. Pe tāre niti hiva. O o traini pe whainga sport. O ne whawhunga na whanua. Ako whaamu yanga gogi he Olympiki hoko mai.
Pita, I know that your focus is on the Olympics right now, but after the Olympics, what happens in the immediate after the Olympics? You know, is there regional comps that you probably can't go to at the moment, depending on the COVID situation, Commonwealth Games, there's other things in the horizon. Sort of forgetting COVID for a moment, what would normally be happening after an Olympics? Do you have 6 months off and then get back into it again? What does it look like for you?
Well, if I have 6 months off, I'm going to spend 5 months washing the oil off. But so I've started doing motivational speaking at different events. So I just recently did a job for Intel. So doing motivational speaking, 300 people and helping them go through their, getting a lot of people going through a tough time now. And there's going to be a lot of transition in the world, just in general, and people are doing it tough. So so I'm going through this motivational speaking thing, and we're doing corporate events. We're pushing very hard in the kayaking as well. You might see that from social media. We're trying to do that. We'll be setting up the Kayak Federation in Tonga.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and one of the dreams, and this has been a dream, and I've spoken to you about this, and Master Paul knows about this one, is to, and I'm going to use the exposure from this Olympics. This is kind of my bigger goal for any kind of exposure from this Olympics, to build a training center, an Olympic training center for the youth of Tonga.
Wow! Starting
in Tonga, where we start with taekwondo, so any kid in Tonga can come and train for free.
Wow!
Within
that's awesome.
Any of the youth can come and train for free, so that it's no longer a barrier. Having the facilities, you don't have to go overseas to be able to have those facilities. And with that, I want to be bringing in the best coaches to do workshops. The best, whatever the sport is, whether it be in taekwondo, in kayaking, in even bodybuilding, whatever it is that the Tongans are passionate about, bringing in the best from around the world to come and do free stuff for the kids, so that there's no
like
cost.
Clinics and workshops.
And workshops, and ultimately inspire them to want to be something greater. And so that's what I'm wanting to do with this. We're going to be. Actually, I'll probably speak about that later. But we're going to be trying to do some fundraising. To be able to build these facilities, and that's kind of, as soon as the Olympics is finished, my mindset is going, how are we going to build free facilities for the kids of Tonga, and then we'll move around the Pacific. But let's hit Tonga first, and then test how we do it, fine tune it, then we move to other areas of the Pacific.
I love it. I love that vision, and that's very exciting to hear about that, and also the option of bringing people from overseas, so instead of us going overseas, bringing overseas to Tonga, which is really good clinics and developing our youth. So it seems like the vision is really moving to the grassroots and for developing the next line of generation coming up through the ranks as well. I'll hit Paula up with a question here. Paula, o ke pehe o ko ilo koe whai ako koe kia Pita, I ka ngatai ko ki o sia usia e tuunga koe master I he sipoti koe ni ko taekwondo, nei mo taimi na ke I korea ai o ako ai I he malae koe ne taekwondo, pio koe toi whakalele whoki e koe ha senta taekwondo I Nuusila. O ke pehe e ai ha taimi te ke whetongi o ke toi tui a tata koe o whai ako, ka ke kau koe o compete I he Olympiki pe ko Commonwealth I he kahau.
O ku whaori whukisuri ko ngā. I he whawhungai ko koe, I malera koe ki Olympiki ko wafta no I wio. Ne whakakaukau mahu ko mafu motua. Kia I he osi ko ia, pia ko whakata peka pita he taimi lai. O ku alu pe tau ia, mo toe lahi ange ngahi mea koe, mo toe sai ange sipoti mo whamasi no. Mahalo mo koe alu koe tau toi ki whakapoto ange. Ka koe tari ko whehui, koe kai whehui whai ngā tā moani. Ngā kia te au te whtoi ngā ue pa mo e whakaamu, ke ohi ake ai hako tupu, mo e tau tupu e whanua. Ko ngā ke malawa ke nau te sai ange, mo te rerei ange whai ange hamea. Tuku ke he ka pau e au ki he kahau o ku ia spotia ke he kau mātua mo mea e malawa ke te kaotai ki he Olimpiki. Pekau ki he Olimpiki hoko kuri riu e kai ake o kai ke toi kai ak to taha pita. Mā te heka he sea mui o tokoni. Mako koe whaunga pia au ki ai. Kai he taim te tau. I he koe whakakau lahi koe e te au e surieni ki he me ki he kahau. Ke malawa o i kai ki ako i peki nau tolu e kau ako. Ke nau whawhunga e tonga i he sipoti. Kai malawa ke aluhake ha tau tupu a tonga. O au ke tunga o te iai. Ke lava peke nau te whaiako. Mo whakarere ngahi sipoti mo mea o hoko atu. He ko ilo ke te au koe mahuinga taha koe whakarere mea o mawhai. Ke ma stepi koe ki mui. O lava ki nau tolu koe hawatupe whanua o hoko atu.
I'm going to give you a question, Pita, which you can think about, then I'll come to Paula while you think about your response, because I want to hit you with a hard question on the spot kind of thing. My question that I'll be coming to you about is mental health. Slightly off the topic here, but just something, you mentioned being a motivational speaker and all, and I know that there are people watching. I believe personally that the Olympics represents a lot of hope for humankind and like what you were sharing before, at a time when the world's probably, we could say we're all in a bit of a low, it's a high, and it's something for us to look forward to, and it brings countries together and so forth. So I'll come back to you in a moment, but just have a think about that point. Coming over to Paolo for a moment. Paolo, o ke hatoi tawha aki ke he o teki tau talanoa ki ai he ahoni, ko ke loto ko ia ke whaihaki wahe he houani ki he kaumamata ki o tau kainga tonga i he whunga koeho mo tiu ke mo o whawhunga ia tonga he Olimpiki i Siapani.
Malo pita suri. Uloki piu ngā koe ngai whainga tāngu ni ngō mau whaua ki he teu koe alu. Tā te whito ki he tātāpuni koe ngahi borders mo e whainga tāwhi whalau aki. Kore pē ai lotu ai kāinga, pēr mo e whanua. O nā tuku ho mō lotua mai ki maua, kau mai kau sipoti mei tō ngā. I he teu whalau kuni ngō whai. Pēr mo e whiauhi ngō wa manaki whahauko i Siapani. O au ki he mau whoki mai. Ke mau whoki mo ui mai be, mo whoki mo i rei mai be, ta e wesia he COVID. Pēr koe mea mauinga pē taha u whaamu ki e tuku ate toka ngā ke suri. O kia whamaro lahi ki he tasa ki tonga kau mai pureanga. Taki toa mo ki nau tolu ko toa ko ia e kau ngau e koe tasa. Pea mo e kau taki koe pureanga. I he pou pea mo e tokoni u nau whai o malawa i o whakahoko ai wholau koe ni i ngai taim whaingataa koe ni. Lawe i be he motuani e whaingataa koe whainga. Pea mo e ngahi whea mo kaki koe whainga. Ka koe lotolahi whai e tantoa kau mai kau taki koe mei tonga. I he teu mo e whenga i ki mauto ke lava ke mau wholau atu o whawhungai a tonga, kau mau ngai whamiri. Mo ki tau tolu kotoa pē, i Morini, i he spoti Olimpiki koe ni. Pea o kai ke ngatai, o kia o whalahi ratu ki a te mo tolu hana kotoa pē. Pea he ki nau tolu, toko nia mai mo lotua mai ki mauto. Pea he whamaro walahi ki e, kia koe suri kau mai Pasifika Radio and TV, he mau whainga maari e koe ni. Ko ngā ke whakao atuai ai ho mareo. Kau mai TALANOA, awa tai ki ho tau kāinga. O kia whamaro lai kia te moto. Sudan.
Mahalo. Pita, back to our question out there. It's a hopeless world in some regards at the moment with what's going on. A lot of people in the last 12 months have lost close family members and so forth. Looking at the Olympic Games, we want something to hope for. What's some words of inspiration you can share with our global family at these upcoming Olympic Games?
It's very hard for me to say anything after hearing Paul, because Master Paul has been, just listening to him thank everybody, and it reminds me of no, not yet. It reminds me of what the Olympics is about, right? That it's not just an athlete going and competing. It's an athlete, coach, trainer. You have media, you have family, we got Tasa who helped us all the way through. You got the government, all the people who are excited to watch. So it reminds me that it's a big team effort. So in regards to your question about mental health and what I have for people is look for the hope in the difficult times. Because there's always hope, there's always a light somewhere you might be facing into a corner. Turn around, find that light, find it wherever it is. You know, we're Christian people. He's a better Christian than me. I try to do better every day. You know, so we pray and you know, we appreciate all the prayers from everyone who's going to be supporting us. You know, our light certainly comes from a higher place. But I believe that, you know, even in the darkest times, there's a light somewhere. We just have to turn around and find it where it is. And I believe that. I believe that, and I believe the Olympic Games will showcase a lot of that through the athletes' struggles, and hopefully someone over there, someone watching, gets something from that.
That's awesome, inspirational. Before we do our shout-outs, maybe just quickly, Paula, ka wate ki whai ki I lawe whawawe pe I ta whakoini o I hao mo malu I he Isiapani. Koe ha whaunga o koe nau whakahoko ai ngahi sivi COVID ta hiwa o whai whakaaho pe whai homotu uta ki ai. What does that look like for you, mamo tolo e kau aterita, kau sipoti?
Ko ilo ko I he whaingata ngani koe COVID e surien o ku nai tutuni ke kamata I he weekendi ai mau jaktahtoka ngā I ene mo I lelei pa moe haichin ko ngā te wholau. A koe I wike ka hau, te ma wholau atu I he ātoko naki, aho tāwhitu. Pea ki mua e wholau, ko pau ke whai whahau koe tesi houa e hiwa ono. I ki mua pea toe tesi I he houa e whitu ua, pea toki whahau koe wholau. Wow. Ka ki mua ke te wholau, ko pau ke mau e tesi koe au negative. Pea o kai e pi e nai whakahako mai mi Siapani ke download ki he te telefoni e ua. I he te tūta ko ki Siapani, o pau ke te activate e ngo app ko ia, o whakahu e tesi ko ia ki he telefoni, pea show ia ki he kau immigration ko koe, officer ko koe Siapani. Pea toki lava le vai ke te hu ki Siapani. Wow. I he aho toa pe ko pau ke nau tesi kita. I he aho toa pe ko pau ke nau tesi kita. Pea ko pau ke te mui pau ki taia ki he lao, pea mo tutuuni, ko os whahauka tohi tutuuni ko koe Olimpiki, os pāsi mai mi Siapani. Koe ke ngofua e ke te aluka whetu ke, ta e whakahoka ki he kau ofisa. Pea ko whetu ko toa pe ko pau ke te resisita e te telefoni. I ngā, ka pau iai ha taha, iha whanua pe ko ha taha sipote, pe ko ha ofisiolo, o test positivi, e epi ko pau ke nau identify, ko whetu te nau move holo ai. Ako no moni ko ngaunu ko toa pe whai Siapani, te nau monitor, ai taha ko toa pe.
Ai he tonga koe e malawa ke mō a hia ha wharekoloa I tua he Athletes Village, pe o ku kei ngofua ia. Pe o kange koe ini ko QR code pe te check-in lever ki he wharekai ko ia, pe ko wharekoloa ko ia, pe o ku...
Hei kai ke tatau hangi koe ni, e malawa pe ko pau ke te poaki, mo whakaha ki mua, pe ko hae taimi te alo ai. Pau pau te nau tō whakahoko maha ngofua pa te toki alo. Kono moni he kai ke taua ta hanga lau na whai pitane nai, o ku uongo ka mauhanga ko ki nau tolu ko fuafua alu ki he Olimpiki, kai ke nau lava ke experience ka kato e Olimpiki, pa mo lau maari e Olimpiki. Ka he taimi ta tau ku whai pele rei taha, he koe tu ia ia Olimpiki. Pea ko ilo koe malu taha pa mo hao taha koe ke he timi a Tonga, o mau toko si ipe. Koe kau atelita pe e toko ono, koe kau ofisiare, o ku mahunga te ma whengau e aki, pea mo whewunga taha, mo tauhi pea malu. Pea ku whaingofua pe ia ka te mātolo ku mau kei toko si, ke tauhi malu pea mo hao I Siapani.
Mahalo au pito. Pita, and then I'll cut Master Paula. Shout outs, I'm sure there's family, friends and that out there you probably will have who you may just talk to on the phone or on Zoom calls, etc. But it's a chance now we're alive right now, and this will also be repeated on the internet as well, but your chance just to say some shout outs to anyone you want to acknowledge. Here's your opportunity, bro.
Let me just grab my list.
Yeah. Get the scroll out.
Shout out first and foremost to my father, who's over in Tonga. My father's gone through a tough time lately, and he hasn't been able to visit the family or us visit him. So shout out to my father over in Tonga, and across to my mother. My mother's had a very tough year. So shout out to you, Mum and Dad, to all of the family over in Tonga, and to everyone in Tonga and around the world who's going to be supporting us. You know, we do the best that we can, and we know that you're all out there sending your love and your offers to us. So shout out to all of you guys.
Malo Paula, ata whenga maari ke whakahoko hapopua ki e whamiri mo kai ngau ku mea mai he wahope.
O koe ka hapopua ki whamu mai. O koe e owhalai atu to my wife and my kids back home for supporting me and allowing me to be here. I don't rob my shoulder.
I think your wife just bought a few stars just then on our live stream when you said that.
O koe e talamono atu ki to my clubs in New Zealand for supporting me, and to all my friends. Shout out to all the families in Tonga. Kia malia paseka, if you watch. Good luck, and we'll see you in Japan. And Malakai, Taktoa and Tassa, Waisioa, and all those supporters in Tonga, we going to represent us all. Good.
Awesome. Malo Pita. Well, on behalf of Pasifika TV and Radio, and I guess I speak for the wider Tongan community across all of Australia and the world as well, we're all 100% behind both yourselves as well as the rest of our Tongan team and the Pacific teams that are going to represent over there at the 32nd Olympiad in Tokyo, Japan. We wish you Godspeed and all the best, particularly to have a very safe games, COVID-free games, that you all come back healthy, back to wherever you respectively reside. O kua tai popo ki talamonu koia ai poate koia mei he leti o mo TV.Pasifika, ka maa foki ai kainga Tonga mei he koneneni tini o Australia, mo maa mani katoa kia tiki maua pe he foki tau timi Tonga. Ke kawata e ki o langi i he ngahi whenga kotok whai i Siapani, ke mo hao mo malu, pe ke mo foki mo uilelei mai pe ki he takitaha whitu mo nofu ai, pe te maulotu atu pe mo tolu, pe mo whakatawange ke uwhiowhia ki mo tolu, he tata o kalaisi whitu pe te mo iai, lawe pe koe taimi whenga taa foki ni maa mani, ka o mo alu whakataha mo maulotu, pe mo mau amanaki lelei. Kai kehe, mea teki mau tolu, whakamaroto ki a moa. Big thank you to Paula Sitapa, Master Paula Sitapa, coach for our very own Pita Taufatofua Jr. Thank you so much for coming on the program today and availing your busy time. I know you're busy preparing, you're ready to travel, and you're going to have that many COVID tests in the next few weeks. It'll probably drive you a little bit insane, but on behalf of all of us here, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming in. It means a lot to us and also to our viewers. Whakamaroto kia tiki mo tolo hou eki mo kainga Tonga ho mo kaumai he tau polokalama koia o e Houani. Pea o kuatai talamonu kia tiki mo tolu. Whakawhi ia tiki mo mea mai ki he tau polokalama hono hoko. Pea me a te au sulieni, pea mo motu o noi me he studio uluaki o Letio mo TV.Pasifika me Brisbane, Australia. Ofu ke mo maofo ki ha ewhi awhelelei ke mo tatoka tu au whātu.
How many nurses are there in Australia? What's the average income of someone living in inner Sydney? How many people in Samoa live in Queensland? What are the top 10 occupations of Tongans in Australia?
What services we get, how they are funded, and where they're delivered depends heavily on statistics. The Australian Bureau of Statistics are conducting the 2021 census on the 10th of August this year.
It's important our Pasifika community has a voice and fills out the census forms accurately to ensure we are represented when government allocates funding, services, language support, and other assistance in the future.
Whether you're a citizen or not, whether you're here temporarily or permanently, the 10th of August 2021 is a snapshot of Australia for the census that will shape and impact future generations.
For more information, check out www.abs.gov.au. Census 2021. It's time for the Pacific to be counted.
Census 2021. It's time for the Pacific to be counted.
Whakatalofa atu ki a koutou katoa. Former Tuvaluan Prime Minister Enele Sopuanga once said, "If we save Tuvalu, we save the world."
Pasifika TV and Radio are on the lookout for innovative and creative minds to help save and shape the future of our Pacific through programming, technical experience, and exciting community developments through our multimedia platforms.
With a dynamic team of over 30 volunteers across Australia and the Pacific, we contribute in our spare time to a vision that includes bringing a Pacific perspective, shining shining a light on our culture, our spirituality, our language, our people, and our stories.
If you have a skill you'd like to share, a passion to build, want to add some work experience to your resume from home or in Brisbane, then we'd love to hear from you.
Fluency in a Pacific language is an advantage, but not a necessity.
Share your idea and let us know who you are by Facebook Messenger or email pacificaonair@gmail.com.
If we save the Pacific, we can influence the entire world.
If we save the Pacific, we can influence the entire world.
But
But
it starts with us.
Maloelele. As an Olympian, I know what it's like to push for your personal best, to go beyond the limits of endurance, and to be faster, higher, and stronger. As a Tongan and a Pacific Islander, I come from a generation of ocean warriors, traditional navigators, and natural pioneers. Giving up is not in our vocabulary. Pacifica TV and radio is a voice for our Pacific people, sharing our stories, our traditions, our culture, our language, and a message of hope for our people, by our people. Show your support and build with us as we power forward to the finish line.
Thinking about learning Tongan, or you'd like your children to be taught the Tongan language? Look no further than the Queensland Tongan Language School. The Queensland Tongan Language School offers a diverse Tongan language course covering reading, writing, listening, and most importantly, speaking. Our team of dedicated teachers deliver 6 lessons during school term, including face-to-face classes in Logan on Brisbane's south side for our Joeys or preschoolers, koalas, our primary school students, and our wombats or high school students. But that's not all. To ensure flexibility, we deliver online as well, with our Brumbies or adult beginners class and our Emus or second year adult class and our Crocodiles or master class for those who want to learn advanced Tongan. Enrollments are welcome for our online classes from across Australia and around the world. All students are welcome to attend our TALANOA or weekly informal conversational club to practice speaking Tongan with our community elders. Don't forget our pen pal program with Friends of Tonga, just another great way to learn. Enroll today at brisbanetongancommunity.com/QTLS or drop us an email to brisbanetongancommunity@gmail.com. The Queensland Tongan Language School. Koe hakao e ahoni, koe whanua o apongpongi. Today's reef is tomorrow's land. Enroll today and start your journey learning the Tongan language.